Kevin Spacey. He was once one of Hollywood's most respected performers, known for his calm, commanding presence and incredible range. 2 Oscars under his belt, one for The Usual Suspects and another for American Beauty, and a career that stretched from theater to television to major blockbusters. By the time he played Frank Underwood in House of Cards, he had already built a reputation as one of the greats. Then, in 2017, everything collapsed. Actor Anthony Rapp accused him of sexual misconduct, saying the incident happened in the 1980s when Rapp was just 14. Within days, more people came forward with similar allegations spanning decades. Netflix cut ties immediately, removing him from House of Cards and halting production. Director Ridley Scott even reshot All the Money in the World from scratch, replacing Spacey completely with Christopher Plummer, a rare move for a finished film. Practically overnight, Spacey vanished from Hollywood. The Academy never announced a formal ban, but his name disappeared from directories and the silence around him was deafening. In 2022, he stood trial in London on multiple sexual assault charges. The following year, a jury found him not guilty on all counts. Since then, Spacey has slowly begun reappearing. In 2025, he accepted a Lifetime Achievement honor presented by the Better World Fund during the Cannes season, not by the Cannes Film Festival itself, but still a high-profile moment. Around the same time, he announced The Awakening, his directorial debut set to premiere at the Venice Film Festival, while continuing to face a civil suit in London. Whether Hollywood forgives him or not remains uncertain. What is clear is that Spacey is trying to rebuild step by step. His story reminds everyone that in Hollywood, reputation can collapse in a moment, and rebuilding it can take years of quiet persistence. Mel Gibson. He started as one of Hollywood's most bankable stars. Mad Max, Lethal Weapon, Braveheart. Every decade seemed to have a Mel Gibson hit. He could act, direct, and sell tickets all over the world. In 1995, he took home 2 Oscars for Braveheart, one for Best Director and another for Best Picture, and everyone saw him as Hollywood royalty. Then 2006 changed everything. After being arrested for drunk driving in Malibu, Gibson went on a tirade filled with anti-Semitic remarks toward the officer. The details leaked and the backlash was instant. He apologized publicly, blaming it on alcohol and stress, but the damage was done. Studios distanced themselves, his agency dropped him, and every interview became about the scandal instead of his work. For a while, he disappeared from the spotlight, focusing on smaller directing projects. But in 2010, new audio recordings surfaced of him in a heated argument with his then-girlfriend, filled with racial slurs and threats. It reignited outrage and solidified his place on Hollywood's unofficial blacklist. Years later, he managed to find a way back. In 2016, he directed Hacksaw Ridge, a World War II drama that earned 6 Oscar nominations, including Best Director. The comeback looked impressive, but the industry still kept its distance. He was never officially expelled or banned by the Academy, but for years his name was considered too risky to headline big studio films. Today, he continues to work mostly in smaller or independent productions. His story shows how even with undeniable talent, the wrong words at the wrong moment can take decades to recover from. Alec Baldwin. He was Hollywood's classic leading man in the 90s, known for his deep voice, sharp wit, and that trademark smirk that made every role feel effortless. From The Hunt for Red October to Glengarry Glen Ross, Baldwin could swing between hero and villain with ease. Then came his comedic reinvention on 30 Rock, where he became a household name again, followed by a viral fame from his political impressions on Saturday Night Live. But everything changed in October 2021. During the filming of The Western Rust in New Mexico, a tragic accident turned his career upside down. While rehearsing a scene, a prop gun in Baldwin's hand discharged, killing cinematographer Helena Hutchins and injuring director Joel Souza. The news shook Hollywood and sparked a massive debate about on-set safety and responsibility. Investigations dragged on for years. Questions over how live rounds ended up on set led to conflicting stories, shifting blame and public outrage. Baldwin maintained that he never pulled the trigger, while prosecutors argued otherwise. In 2023, he was charged with involuntary manslaughter, only for the case to collapse months later. The charges were officially dismissed in 2024 after issues with how evidence had been handled. Since then, Baldwin has tried to rebuild. His follow-up civil lawsuit against prosecutors was tossed out in 2025, and while he hasn't been banned by the Academy or any guild, his reputation still carries the shadow of that tragedy. These days, he keeps a lower profile, focusing on smaller projects and family life. The Rust accident remains one of the darkest moments in modern Hollywood history, a reminder that in an industry built on illusion, one real-life mistake can change everything. Armie Hammer. He looked like a future A-lister from the start. Tall, charming, and born into wealth, Armie Hammer had that old-school movie star look studios used to chase. After playing the Winklevoss twins in The Social Network, his rise felt inevitable. The Lone Ranger was meant to cement him as a leading man, and Call Me By Your Name earned him critical respect worldwide. Then, in early 2021, everything collapsed. Private messages allegedly showing Hammer discussing violent sexual fantasies and cannibalistic fetishes spread online. Within days, several women accused him of emotional abuse, manipulation, and assault. Hammer denied everything, saying the messages were consensual roleplay that had been taken out of context. Hollywood reacted immediately. His agency dropped him, his publicist quit, and he was replaced in films like Shotgun Wedding and The Offer. The Los Angeles Police Department opened an investigation, but by 2023, prosecutors said there wasn't enough evidence to file criminal charges. He stepped away from acting, entered rehab for substance issues, and later moved to the Cayman Islands, where he worked outside the industry. In interviews, he admitted the scandal destroyed his career, but said it also forced him to confront deeper personal problems he had been avoiding. By early 2025, Hammer began returning to film work, telling interviewers that he now receives more offers than he accepts. He is set to appear in an upcoming Western titled Frontier Crucible, marking a slow but deliberate comeback after years away from Hollywood. No criminal charges were ever filed, and whether the industry fully embraces him again is still uncertain. For now, Armie Hammer's story remains one of caution and reflection, a reminder of how quickly fame can collapse and how long it takes to earn a second chance. Shia LaBeouf. He started out as one of Disney Channel's brightest young stars, the kind of actor everyone expected to grow up and take over Hollywood. After Even Stevens and Holes, Shia LaBeouf moved easily into blockbuster territory with Transformers and Indiana Jones, and The Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. He was funny, intense, and unpredictable, the kind of presence that made every scene feel alive. By the mid-2010s, though, the headlines started to shift. Arrests for public intoxication, street fights, and his unpredictable performance art stunts made people wonder if he was spiraling. He wore a paper bag over his head at film festivals and hosted an art installation where strangers could sit silently with him for hours. Some people called it deep, others called it chaos, but it always got attention. Then came the real turning point. In 2020, musician and actress FKA Twigs filed a lawsuit accusing LaBeouf of sexual battery, assault, and emotional abuse. She described a pattern of control and fear that shocked the industry. He denied the claims, but later admitted in interviews that he had hurt people in his life and needed help. Studios backed away instantly, Netflix and Disney stopped discussions for future projects, and his agency let him go. Olivia Wilde also removed him from Don't Worry Darling after tensions behind the scenes, though LaBeouf insisted he left voluntarily. After that, he stepped back completely. He went to rehab, rediscovered his faith while preparing for the film Padre Pio in 2022, and said his conversion to Catholicism changed how he saw everything. He slowly began working again in smaller, independent roles, away from the spotlight. In July 2025, his lawsuit with FKA Twigs was settled confidentially and dismissed with prejudice, meaning it is officially closed and cannot be refiled. Whether Hollywood is ready to welcome him back is another story. For now, Shia LaBeouf's career stands as a mix of incredible talent, personal turmoil, and the long, uneasy question of whether true redemption exists in the industry. Roseanne Barr. She was one of television's biggest names in the late 80s and early 90s. Her sitcom Roseanne broke barriers for showing a working-class American family that felt authentic, messy, and real. She won both an Emmy and a Golden Globe, and the show became one of the highest-rated series of its era. For a long time, Roseanne Barr was seen as a comedic icon who helped redefine what a sitcom could look like. Then, in 2018, her career fell apart overnight. After the Roseanne reboot launched on ABC and pulled massive ratings, Barr posted a racist tweet comparing former White House advisor Valerie Jarrett to an ape. The backlash was immediate. ABC called the comment abhorrent and canceled the show within hours. Her agency dropped her, co-stars denounced the statement, and advertisers began pulling away. Barr apologized, saying she was under the influence of sleep medication when she wrote it, but the damage was irreversible. ABC quickly reworked the show into The Connors, removing her character entirely and continuing without her. She later said she felt betrayed by the network and by her former colleagues, but most of Hollywood kept its distance. Over the next few years, Barr leaned into stand-up comedy and independent projects, often framing herself as a victim of cancel culture. While she was never formally expelled from the Academy or any guild, the industry made it clear that her return to mainstream television was off the table. Her story became a case study in how one social media post can end decades of work within a single morning. In Hollywood, reputation moves fast, and sometimes there is no second chance. Ezra Miller. For a while, Ezra Miller seemed unstoppable. After a chilling breakout role in We Need to Talk About Kevin and a heartfelt performance in The Perks of Being a Wallflower, they became one of Hollywood's most promising young stars. When Warner Brothers cast them as the Flash in the DC Extended Universe, it looked like the start of a long, high-profile career in superhero films. Then, things began to fall apart. In 2020, a video surfaced showing Miller appearing to choke a fan outside a bar in Iceland. The clip spread fast, but no charges were filed, and many assumed it was a one-time lapse in judgment. 2 years later, however, the situation escalated. In early 2022, Miller was arrested twice in Hawaii, once for disorderly conduct and harassment at a karaoke bar, and again for second-degree assault after allegedly throwing a chair at a woman. As the year went on, more troubling reports surfaced. Families accused Miller of grooming and manipulating young people, while court filings described erratic behavior, weapon possession, and squatting on private property. Miller denied most of the accusations, but eventually released a public statement, admitting they were dealing with complex mental health issues. They entered treatment later that year and asked for privacy while seeking ongoing help. For Warner Brothers, it was a nightmare situation. The Flash had already been filmed, with hundreds of millions sunk into production. Recasting was impossible, and scrapping the film would have meant massive financial losses. The studio went ahead with the 2023 release, but despite years of anticipation, the movie underperformed and the controversy followed every press appearance. By 2025, Miller had largely withdrawn from the spotlight. They have not been officially banned by the Academy or any major guild, but industry insiders describe them as effectively blacklisted until they demonstrate long-term stability. Their story became a modern warning for Hollywood, a reminder of how quickly public image can collapse when fame, pressure, and personal turmoil collide. Charlie Sheen. He was once the highest-paid actor on television. With 2.5 Men, Charlie Sheen turned his natural charm, sharp humor, and unpredictable energy into one of the biggest sitcom successes of the 2000s. Before that, he was already a film star with credits like Platoon and Wall Street, and his career looked like it could last forever. Then everything spiraled. In 2011, Sheen's personal life exploded into the public eye. He began giving a series of erratic interviews filled with catchphrases like winning and tiger blood, openly mocking his show's creator, Chuck Lorre, and bragging about his drug use and sex life. CBS responded by shutting down production of 2.5 Men and eventually firing him from the show. His firing was one of the most dramatic collapses in television history. He filed a lawsuit against Warner Brothers and Lorre, eventually settling for millions, but the damage to his reputation was irreversible. His follow-up sitcom, Anger Management, ran for a while but never reached the same level of success. Behind the scenes, reports of substance abuse, domestic disputes, and reckless spending continued to pile up. In 2015, Sheen publicly revealed that he was HIV positive, saying he had paid large sums of money to keep the diagnosis private for years. The admission sparked both sympathy and renewed controversy, as several women accused him of exposing them without disclosure. No criminal charges were filed, but civil suits followed, and the story dominated headlines again. Over time, Sheen began focusing on recovery and reconciliation. By 2023, he was reportedly sober and working to rebuild relationships in the industry. Still, the major studios never fully welcomed him back. He was never formally banned by the Academy, but his career became a cautionary tale about how fame, addiction, and ego can burn through even the brightest success story in Hollywood. Okay, if you're still here, you're probably into this stuff, which is great. So be sure to hit that like and subscribe. All right, back to the video. Brendan Fraser. In the 1990s, Brendan Fraser was everywhere. He was funny, athletic, and had the kind of screen presence that made audiences root for him instantly. From George of the Jungle to the Mummy trilogy, he seemed unstoppable. Hollywood branded him as the perfect action comedy lead, and his physical commitment to stunts made him a director's favorite. But behind the scenes, his body and career were taking a beating. By the mid-2000s, things began to fall apart. Years of injuries from performing his own stunts led to multiple surgeries, and his marriage ended in a public divorce that strained his finances. Around the same time, he claimed that in 2003 he had been sexually assaulted by Philip Burke, a former president of the Hollywood Foreign Press Association. Fraser said that after speaking out, he was quietly blacklisted from many major studio projects. Burke denied wrongdoing, but Fraser's name began to disappear from movie posters almost overnight. For years, he worked only in smaller roles and television appearances. Far from the blockbuster spotlight, the industry moved on, and his absence became one of those unspoken Hollywood mysteries. How could someone so beloved vanish so completely? Fans started calling it the Brendan Fraser disappearance, even though he had never quit acting. Then, slowly, things changed. His performance in The Whale in 2022 brought him back to the Oscars, where he won Best Actor. It was an emotional full-circle moment, with the entire industry giving him a standing ovation. He thanked those who believed in him and spoke openly about what he had endured. Fraser was never banned by Hollywood or expelled from the Academy, but he experienced a kind of soft exile that lasted for years. His story stands out because it reversed course, a reminder that sometimes the same system that forgets you can also welcome you back if you survive long enough to tell your story. Katherine Heigl. For a while, Katherine Heigl was everywhere. She started young, modeling and acting in small roles before breaking through with Grey's Anatomy in 2005. Her character, Izzy Stevens, made her one of television's most beloved faces, and her performance even earned her an Emmy. From there, she jumped straight into film, starring in romantic comedies like Knocked Up, 27 Dresses, and The Ugly Truth. For a brief moment, she was one of Hollywood's top female leads. Then, her reputation started to change. In 2008, she publicly withdrew herself from Emmy consideration, saying she had not been given the material that season to deserve a nomination. Fans took it as honesty, but insiders saw it as an insult to the show's writers. Around the same time, she called Knocked Up a little sexist, which reportedly angered both director Judd Apatow and co-star Seth Rogen. Soon after, the stories began spreading. Crew members and producers described her as difficult and ungrateful, and projects that once lined up started disappearing. By 2010, her film career had cooled dramatically, and Grey's Anatomy wrote her character off completely. Whether fair or exaggerated, the difficult label stuck, and it followed her everywhere she went. Heigl later admitted she made mistakes and said her comments were often taken out of context. Over the years, she spoke about her struggles with anxiety and the pressure of sudden fame. By the 2020s, she began rebuilding her image, starring in Netflix's Firefly Lane and returning to interviews with a calmer, more grounded perspective. Katherine Heigl was never banned by the Academy or blacklisted officially, but her story shows how in Hollywood, reputation can shift faster than box office numbers. One quote can change the narrative, and sometimes it takes years to recover from words that were never meant to burn bridges. James Woods. For decades, James Woods was one of Hollywood's sharpest actors. Known for his fast-talking intensity and razor-focused performances, he built a reputation through films like Salvador, Casino, and Videodrome. Critics praised his work, and he earned multiple Oscar nominations along the way. For a long time, Woods was respected as one of those actors who could make any character feel electric, no matter the size of the role. Then came the controversy. In the late 2010s, Woods became known less for his acting and more for his outspoken political opinions on social media. His posts, often confrontational and politically charged, drew heavy criticism and multiple suspensions from platforms like Twitter. Several Hollywood insiders began calling him radioactive for studios that wanted to avoid public backlash. In 2017, he claimed that he had effectively been blacklisted by Hollywood for his views. He said that his agent dropped him, and that roles had stopped coming in entirely. While no official ban or Academy action was ever announced, the shift was clear. Major studios stopped offering him parts, and projects that once would have called him for supporting roles moved on to other actors. Despite stepping back from the spotlight, Woods continued to appear in smaller independent productions and lent his voice to animated roles. He also remained vocal in interviews, saying he valued honesty more than acceptance. Some fans admired his refusal to change, while others said his online behavior ruined what had been one of the most interesting acting careers of the 80s and 90s. James Woods was never formally expelled from the Academy, but his career is often cited as a modern example of how off-screen opinions can shape on-screen opportunities. In a business built on image, sometimes silence ends up being the most powerful career move of all. Vince Vaughn. Vince Vaughn built his career on fast talk and quick wit. After breaking out in Swingers in the 1990s, he became the face of smart, offbeat comedies like Old School, Wedding Crashers, and Dodgeball. For years, he was part of that elite group of actors who could make a movie a hit just by showing up. Then his image began to shift. In 2018, social media erupted after cameras caught him chatting warmly with then-President Donald Trump at a football game. For some, it was harmless small talk, but others saw it as a political endorsement. Within hours, Vince Vaughn canceled was trending. He didn't respond publicly, but the moment revealed how polarized Hollywood had become. His public persona had already started changing before that. He had spoken in interviews about his libertarian views and support for gun rights, comments that didn't sit well with parts of the industry. As a result, invitations to big studio comedies slowed down. By the late 2010s, Vaughn was working mainly in darker thrillers such as Brawl and Cell Block 99 and Dragged Across Concrete, smaller films with loyal audiences, but far from the mainstream spotlight he once owned. Through it all, Vaughn stayed professional, saying he preferred working on projects that challenged him. He was never expelled from the Academy or banned from any organization, but he did experience a subtle Hollywood cold shoulder. Some studios avoided controversy altogether, while others quietly moved him off shortlists. By 2025, Vaughn had eased into character work and producing, appearing in more independent and streaming projects. His story shows how an actor doesn't need a scandal to lose favor. Sometimes all it takes is being seen shaking hands with the wrong person at the wrong time. Johnny Depp. For decades, Johnny Depp was one of Hollywood's most unique stars. From Edward Scissorhands to Pirates of the Caribbean, he built an image as the eccentric leading man who could transform into anyone. Audiences loved him, critics respected him, and studios relied on him to deliver billion-dollar franchises. Then, in 2016, everything changed. Depp's ex-wife, actress Amber Heard, filed for divorce and accused him of domestic abuse. He denied it completely, saying she was the abuser. What followed was one of the most public, bitter celebrity battles of the modern era. Photos, recordings, and accusations went back and forth across the internet for years, dividing fans and reshaping careers. In 2020, a British court ruled against Depp in a libel case he brought against the Sun newspaper for calling him a wife-beater. He lost the case, and the fallout was immediate. Warner Brothers asked him to resign from Fantastic Beasts 3, and Disney quietly stopped all plans for him to return as Captain Jack Sparrow. For many in the industry, the verdict made him untouchable. Then, in 2022, the story flipped. Depp sued Heard for defamation in the United States, and after 6 weeks of televised testimony, the jury largely sided with him. He was awarded millions in damages, and Heard issued her own statement acknowledging the outcome. Public opinion shifted fast, and the internet treated it like a redemption arc. Despite the verdict, Hollywood remained cautious. By 2024, he was acting again, but mostly in European films, including Jean du Barry, which premiered at Cannes. Studios in the United States stayed quiet about hiring him for new blockbusters, even though his fans were pushing for it. Depp's situation became one of the clearest examples of how a private marriage can turn into a global spectacle that reshapes an entire career. He was never banned from the Academy, but for several years he was treated as if he had been frozen out of Hollywood until the public decided he had served his time. Winona Ryder. In the late 1980s and 1990s, Winona Ryder was one of Hollywood's most beloved stars. She had that rare mix of vulnerability and edge that made her perfect for both Tim Burton's gothic worlds and heartfelt dramas. From Beetlejuice to Edward Scissorhands to Girl Interrupted, she was everywhere. Critics adored her, directors wanted her, and audiences connected with her instantly. Then, in 2001, her career hit a wall. Ryder was arrested in Beverly Hills for shoplifting from Saks Fifth Avenue, accused of taking more than $5,000 worth of designer clothes and accessories. The incident shocked fans. She was charged with grand theft, burglary, and vandalism, and the media treated the story like a spectacle. In 2002, she was convicted of felony grand theft and sentenced to 3 years of probation, community service, and fines. During that time, she said she had been struggling with depression and dependence on prescription painkillers after an injury, explaining that she was not in a stable mental state, but Hollywood had already pulled away. Projects that once sought her out vanished, and the offers stopped coming. For several years, Ryder largely disappeared from the public eye. She avoided interviews, moved away from the spotlight, and took only small roles in independent films. The same people who once called her the future of Hollywood suddenly treated her as a liability. But in 2016, everything changed again. Netflix cast her in Stranger Things, and the show became a global phenomenon. Her performance reminded everyone why they had loved her in the first place. And just like that, she was back. Winona Ryder was never banned by the Academy, but for years she lived through a quiet Hollywood freeze. Her story shows that sometimes it is not an official ban that keeps someone out of the spotlight. It is silence, reputation, and the long memory of an industry that forgives slowly. Lindsay Lohan. In the early 2000s, Lindsay Lohan looked like the next big thing. She went from being a Disney favorite in The Parent Trap and Freaky Friday to leading teen comedies like Mean Girls, which made her a global icon. She could sing, act, and carry entire films before she turned 20. Studios saw her as a long-term star who could move effortlessly between comedy, drama, and music. But fame came too fast. By her early 20s, Lohan was showing up late to sets, missing rehearsals, and gaining a reputation for being unreliable. In 2007, she was arrested twice for driving under the influence and cocaine possession. Rehab followed, then probation, then more legal trouble. Between 2007 and 2013, she spent time in and out of treatment facilities, faced multiple arrests, and was even briefly jailed for probation violations. The fallout was brutal. Insurance companies refused to cover her on major productions, and studios backed out of contracts entirely. Projects like Herbie, Fully Loaded, and Georgia Rule became known more for the behind-the-scenes drama than for the films themselves. Directors called her talented but impossible to manage. By the mid-2010s, she had left Los Angeles and moved to Europe, saying she needed distance from Hollywood's chaos. She appeared in smaller indie films, reality shows, and stage productions, but never regained the massive stardom she once had. Then, in 2022, something shifted. Netflix cast her in Falling for Christmas, a light holiday movie that marked her official comeback. Fans were thrilled to see her healthy, grounded, and working again. Lindsay Lohan was never banned by the Academy or blacklisted officially, but she faced one of the harshest industry exiles of her generation. Her story became a symbol of how quickly Hollywood can lift someone up, and how easily it can let them fall when fame and personal struggles collide. Will Smith. He started out as one half of DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince, charming audiences long before he ever stepped on a movie set. Then came The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, which turned him into a household name. From there, he built one of the most consistent film careers in Hollywood, starring in hits like Men in Black, Independence Day, Hitch, And I Am Legend. Will Smith could make people laugh, cry, or cheer in the same scene, and for a long time, it felt like no one could touch him. Then came the night that changed everything. March 27th, 2022, the 94th Academy Awards. Chris Rock made a joke about Jada Pinkett Smith's shaved head, and within seconds, Smith walked on stage and slapped him across the face. The sound echoed through the room and the crowd froze. Moments later, Smith was shouting from his seat using an expletive that cut straight through the live broadcast. The internet exploded. Within minutes, every camera, tweet, and news outlet was replaying the moment. When he returned to the stage later that night to accept his first Oscar for King Richard, the celebration felt uncomfortable. He apologized to the Academy, but not to Rock. The next day, he posted a full written apology online, calling his behavior unacceptable. Behind the scenes, the Academy moved quickly. He resigned from the organization before they could decide his punishment, but a few days later they announced a 10-year ban from all Academy events, including the Oscars. He said he accepted the decision and would take time to reflect. His next film, Emancipation, was delayed and released quietly in 2022, receiving mixed reviews. Public reaction remained divided. Some said he deserved forgiveness. Others said the slap had changed how they saw him forever. By early 2025, he had returned to public events like the Grammys, trying to rebuild his image. Will Smith's ban became one of the most talked about moments in Academy history. It was a reminder that even in an industry built on performance and image, real actions can shake reputations overnight. He was not canceled entirely, but he was forced to live with the reality that one decision on live television became the defining moment of his career. And that wraps up our look at every actor who's been banned, blacklisted, or quietly pushed out of Hollywood. Only a few, like Will Smith, have faced official bans from the Academy, but many others ended up in what insiders call soft exile, losing agents, projects, or the trust of studios that once couldn't get enough of them. If you found this breakdown interesting or learned something new, make sure to hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel grow and keeps these deep dives coming. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.